From Everquote, we have Matt Ricker, one of our senior accelerated sales executives. Matt's been with Everquote for almost as long as I have. I've been with Everquote for almost 6 years. Matt's been what, five years now?
5 and change.
So he's one of our, I think he actually is our top producing sales rep, but he's with our accelerated program. And then of course we have Bo Ward, independent agent, formerly a captive agent, who as a captive agent did absolutely amazing writing. He grew his book from 800 to 3,700 policies in force in just 3 years as a captive. And for you captive agents on the call, obviously understand how incredibly difficult that is to accomplish. So what we're going to do today is focus on some of Bo's processes, like how he works leads. Not just how he works leads, is everything from his tech stack to, what software is he using to work leads and to help grow his business, to how he sets his team up, how many leads per day each team member is getting, and then walking through a bit of his sales process and how he works leads to drive the amazing results that he's had so far. So Bo started an independent, so he went from a captive to independent back in July, right? It was July of this year. So he recently opened Indie Cover, his independent agency. So without further ado, actually one last thing. We want people to ask questions. So any questions you have for Bo or for Matt or me, or for agent, we have Mike Laird of Agency MVP on the line as well. Any questions for us, just post in the Q&A. But really, if you have questions about Bo's process or anything he's talking about, post them in the Q&A feature in Zoom, and we'll ask those questions to Bo or Matt or whoever they're directed towards. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Matt. We're going to have Matt kind of walking us through this little interview here today, and we'll get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Dennis. Nice to meet all of you guys. I noticed some familiar names in the chat here too. Some clients that I've worked with in the past and currently working with now. So thank you guys all for coming. We have Bo, who is an awesome agent who I've worked with for probably 2-3 years at this point.
Yeah.
Like that. So like Dennis was saying, made the transition over from the captive side to the independent side, which is a pretty unique track, which I see a lot more agents doing nowadays. But it's a lot harder than I feel like a lot of people think it is. So we'll kind of get into some of these questions, break down kind of that transition for you guys, and I'll leave it open for questions, here and there. And if you guys have anything, like Dennis said, just throw it in the chat and we'll get to it. So, Mr. Ward, we'll start out with your background, my friend. Tell us where you're located.
Yeah, well, I'm in North Texas, so the Argyle area, which is close to Denton and DFW. So I've been here for over 10 years now. So
awesome, man. So you opened roughly 10 years ago, you're saying?
I was with Farmers a total of 12 years, I believe. I worked at the district office as a recruiter and trainer in the RDM program. Any of you guys know what that is, for 6 years for a district manager. And then I got into the agency side about 4 years ago and became an agent, but all in the DFW area.
Very cool. Very cool. I noticed there's some Texas people in here too as well. So that'll be good for you guys to hear all this. And then I also see some new agents in the participants here. As far as when you first started your captive, and I guess we could say how many members did you have when you first opened versus what you have now?
Yeah, when I first started, I bought a book with about 800 policies. So I had a little bit of renewal income coming in. I just started with a producer and a telemarketer / service person. So that was, that was all I had when I first started was just those two.
Yeah, we
needed to write new business, and so the telemarketer did some service work as well.
There you go. Love that. Did you write it all as the agent?
Me and the other producer did. It was, it was a lot of, service work on the back end of the transition of buying an agency. But yeah, me and the producer wrote everything ourselves.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Now, I feel like this has been a kind of a topic of conversation I've had with a lot of agents recently is, should you start scratch or should you start with buying a book? Because then you have kind of those two different wavelengths of being on enhanced comp, which isn't really a thing in the independent world, versus captives that have a lot of those enhanced compensation plans up front. I mean, what are the benefits of going into it, like with renewal cash flow coming in and those policies already on the books?
Yeah, and for me, it depended on the selling price of the guy that was leaving. I knew the guy, so he was needing to get out pretty quickly. So I got it at a good price. The one thing I will say, whenever I started at the district office as a trainer, the subsidy was just $2,000 a month for farmers, and now the way they have the scratch program, there's pretty big bonuses, which even drives the factor that you need to write more new business from the very get-go. So it's situational, but whenever I was doing it, I think that I kind of waited and chose to buy that book. But if you run a lot of new business with farmers scratch program now at the retail programs, you're able to get some pretty big bonuses if you can hit those. But you need to scale pretty quickly. Yeah.
No, the scaling thing is huge. And I feel like so many agents that come in on those scratch plans are just front loading all their marketing that they're doing. And I have guys that open agency and they're buying 200, 300 leads a day in their first few months, which is nuts. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in general, you've been in insurance for a while. What got you into the business?
Yeah, I went to Texas Tech. So out of college, I went to Mass Mutual, which was kind of like a life insurance financial for a couple of years. And as everybody knows, life insurance is all upfront commissions. Farmers agency. And so he called me up and said, you need to look in the P&C side. And I had no clue about it. So I went and talked to his district manager, and we really hit it off. So the district manager asked me to come work for him. And, I worked for him for 6 years at the district office, and then became an agent. So that's kind of how I got my foot in the door with farmers.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Would you change it, going captive versus going independent?
I wouldn't. Going captive first gave me a lot of the training and tools that I needed. Farmers and State Farm and Allstate, I'm sure a lot of those have really good training programs. I don't think that there's any way that I could have, out of college, gone independent from the very get-go. So I'm very glad I was able to learn the business on the district side, then as a farmer's agent first before, jumping into the independent world.
Yeah.
Knowledge and support is definitely beneficial when I first started.
Yeah, I feel like it also has a little more hand holding for people that aren't, necessarily as well versed in the insurance space, because there's so many different moving parts, and knowing one carrier is pretty taxing as far as digging in.
Yeah, out of college, I did not think I was going to do any insurance business. I think it was the right path. I don't regret it at all. So.
No, that's awesome, man. So when you started, Bo, your agency, did you originally go off of mostly referrals, or did you try mail in terms of marketing? Like, did you do leads right off the bat, or was that something that you kind of came into?
Yeah, the first 6 months, it was really just me and my wife networking and referrals, and we were big into Facebook. We both have quite a few followers, so we really hit social media quite a bit. The first 6 months. But what I learned pretty quickly was no matter how much you call the current book or, whatever the other agent does prior to them leaving with the handoff, you're still going to have a certain amount to leave no matter what. So in the first 6 months, we were still going backwards a little bit, even though we were able to write, a decent amount between just us two. I learned pretty quickly that I needed to scale and write a lot more new business if I wanted to grow it at the pace that I wanted to. I wasn't caught off guard, but the amount of people that you're going to lose, whenever you buy a book is something that you've got to offset with new business because we tried. We contacted every customer, and no matter what, you're going to have people that leave one way or the other. When you have a transition like that.
Yeah, no, the retention piece is huge too, because you already have kind of this predicted cash flows when you're getting into it. And for you to lose some of that renewal business is kind of tough up front. Did you use EverQuote or was it other companies? I know there's a ton of other companies out there. So
whenever I decided to scale, I went and talked to the top guys at Farmers in Texas, and I really just duplicated everything that they did on a smaller basis. We started with EverQuote from the very get-go. So when we first started, it was just me and another producer and a telemarketer, and we started buying about 3 to 5 leads a day from my producer. And I learned pretty quickly that it wasn't gonna be enough for him to have enough volume, because the producer, when you hire a producer, a lot of agents I see, they think that producer can go generate their own leads. Well, if they could do well enough, then they would be an agent. I learned pretty quickly that I'm going to have to provide the leads and the systems that are in place for that producer to really be able to scale. So whenever Farmers was putting on a promotion with EverQuote, or if there was any kind of discounts going on, then I would just buy a big batch of EverQuotes periodically and daily as well to really scale the agency.
Very cool. That's awesome. Do you normally do auto with us, or do you normally do home? Do you do a mixture?
Yeah, we mainly always did auto. Then mainly because of the price, and I can get more leads from auto as well.
Yeah.
So at my biggest, we had about 6 or 7 members in my team of Farmers at our biggest. And each producer was getting 10 to 15 auto leads a day, depending on their pipeline. And before any agents buy any leads, I would definitely recommend having a lead management system in place. Because when we first started buying leads, we were just it was going into the Farmer system, and they were kind of getting lost. So then I talked to Todd McLean, who's the founder of MVP, and that's when we started using Agency MVP, and I really dived into it heavily. And we used it, and we still use it on the independent side as well. So once we were able to really have a system behind our leads, my ROI went way up, and our follow up with each lead was improved drastically with that automation, and having something in place that isn't just going into the Farmer system or whatever system and kind of getting lost. I spent a lot of money and wasted a lot of money because I was buying leads and there was really no follow-up system in the first couple of months like there should have been, or automation going on.
Yep. No, absolutely. And the program that I run here at EverQuote, the Accelerated Growth Program, for all of you watching, which Bo is a part of, we actually require you guys to have a lead management system for all the reasons that Bo had just laid out. Organization is a huge thing when you're buying at a big volume, and you're going to want to be re-engaging these consumers on their X dates, on their policy renewals, checking in on these people 45 days down the line, 90 days down the line, and so on and so forth, in order to drum up business from things that you've bought in the past. Because it's not sorry, I'll let you go.
Yeah, and that's about 6 months into it, 6 to 8 months into it, 90% of our leads that we were closing were leads that I had bought in the past.
Yep.
Actually able to, some months I would not buy any leads, a year or year and a half into it, because we had our pipeline built out, using the auto X date automation through Agency MVP and all their workflows. So I definitely think whenever you buy internet leads, you need to have something automated. You need to have a lead management system that's automating your text and emails right off the bat. So when that lead comes into your system, into Agency MVP, which is integrated with EverQuote, they need to be receiving a text and email immediately. And then you have your drip campaign the first 14 days. And so all that's going on behind the scenes without your producers even having to make a call. So that's really what changed for us tremendously, was whenever we got, those two together. Then my producers are really just closing business instead of having to chase a lot, which is, helping a lot on the ROI. So
for sure.
So, sorry to interrupt here, but he was asking, the leads that you purchased, were they live leads? So I don't know if she's meaning live transfer calls or real-time leads. So maybe you guys can kind of go through that, like how were you taking calls or just leads, and then basically, live transfer call. She was asking, were you taking live transfer calls as well as leads or just leads?
We were just doing leads in the beginning. Like I said, when we had like 4 producers, they were each getting 10 to 15. So we were getting up to 40 to 50 leads a day when we were really blowing and going. And again, the way I viewed it is, if we're not going to get in Val, I know if we use agency MVP correctly or whatever your lead management system you're using, we're going to get them and on the back end on the follow up. So the automation and the workflow and the X state, all those things are major factors when you're buying leads. You hear agents say all the time that, buying leads is terrible and it's a waste of money. Well, it's a waste of money whenever you don't have a system in place. And it's not that difficult. If I can do it, anybody can do it. So once we had the system dialed in and in place, then that's when my producers were writing, over 50 policies, 60, 70 a month, really all off of internet leads. So.
And to kind of play into that too, as far as how many leads your employees were doing and the expectations that were set forth right on your end, I think a lot of people can agree right now. It's really hard to hire, right? At the end of the day, staffing is a huge part of what all you guys do. And you guys might be insurance agents, but honestly, I'd say 50% of you are recruiters and insurance agents, if not more. And it's crazy how difficult that has been lately. So I think there's a lot of talk as well about how staff will burn out and, people aren't necessarily, built for making $150, $200 a day. And it's very important to really put automation into the lives of your producers from a technology standpoint in order to reduce that burnout and give a lot more of the automated activity on those leads while they're kind of following up on all the hot stuff, right? People who've received emails and replied to text or called back and left you guys a voicemail after hours, stuff like that. So, and we were able to do that with the automation with MVP as well as the LCS program with Everquote. When you can have pretty much a telemarketer, from you guys, that takes a lot of the calling out of the producer. That way, they're not getting burned out, because any producer that's going to make that many calls for a extended period of time is going to get burned out. So you have to have something in place where, hopefully it's streamlined to where they're just closing business. And the telemarketing and the automation, the text and emails is all getting done on the front end by somebody else, and your producer can just close the business. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that kind of, it's funny, Marianne Battle put a question in here too that we can go over, because that was actually my next question to you. Kind of moving from the automation to the actual process side of your producers and the follow-up process that you guys have currently. What does that look like in terms of calls, texts, emails? What are you guys doing as soon as that lead comes in?
Yeah, so for the first 14 days, they're getting texts and emails every day from the MVP, and that's just set up on a workflow. So with the integration, as soon as that lead comes in, like I said, they get texts and emails for the first 14 days from MVP. And then on the LCS program, they're calling them the first 14 days as well. So after that 14 days, then if they haven't said stop or haven't replied at all, then the producer will call them again for the next 3 days. And if they don't answer again, then they're going to pipeline them out to 30 days prior to the next renewal on that lead. So that way, no leads wasted. So when a lead comes in the MVP as well, they have round robin. So when I had 4 producers, the leads, and that many leads, the leads were divided up equally. So that way we're not spending time on having to, transfer the leads between each producer, and they know where to work and they know what their batch is. So then I can go into the system as well and see, if this lead's been there for 30 days and hasn't been pipelined or hasn't been X-dated, what's the reason for that? So that way I'm not just spending a ton of money and not knowing what's going on with my money. So, So that's a big thing whenever you're buying that many leads and having that much staff. You definitely want to know, where your money's going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And on that note too, same question from Marianne. Along those lines, do you have any like talk tracks or scripting or anything involved? I know a lot of the new producers probably have that. Then people develop really their own kind of process and how they conversation.
Yeah, MVP has their own workflow templates that I used. So they have like the internet lead workflow templates, the X-Day workflow templates. So we just use that, and we can customize it a little bit. You can customize every one of them as well, and we just changed a few things if we needed to. So we use their workflow templates, and then my producers also go through Craig Wiggins training as well. So that way they're, cost-saving selling, overcoming objections. So we do the Craig Wiggins training as well. Those two things. And then the MVP has a lot of sales scripts also. So we use that as well. So I haven't personally come up with anything myself. I just use it off of people that have been in the past, at a high level. So
no need to reinvent the wheel, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Very cool, man. Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those things where a lot of times it can come off as scripty a little bit too, depending. You want to have your producers really feel out what those scripts look like and add their own personal touch to it. And, they'll help you better buying signals and all sorts of
Yes. Yeah. And as the agent, especially when you first start with EverQuote and MVP, we were tweaking stuff constantly. I mean, my main producer and I would have a weekly meeting. And, we would look at the results, like when you text an email on MVP software, it showed you the open rate, the conversion rate. So you can tell, what verbiage is working and not working. So we were constantly tweaking the workflows. And then also, we would tweak, how many leads we're doing and what zip code. There's zip code reports and geo reports inside of the MVP software as well. So we were constantly looking at the reports if we needed to change zip codes that we're working in. So it's a constant cycle of working and checking and following up with your producers. But especially in the beginning, you definitely got to be very engaged and involved in it. And then it kind of gets going, you can kind of rely on your producers more.
Now, as far as we've kind of highlighted all the stuff that you do really, really well, have you made any mistakes in the past, like over the last 10 years in terms of lead buying or, working certain leads a certain way or using a technology that, wasn't what you thought it was, anything like that?
Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes. The first mistake I made, I would say, was buying leads before I had any kind of system in place.
Yeah.
I just kind of relied on farmers' system. We had Systems, and then we had there was quote something, and then Apex. So I would say not having a lead management system in place was the number one thing before buying leads, and then also not having my producer ready to take on those leads as well. So not having them go through a Craig Wiggins training and sales training. Would be my number one. My second thing would be my biggest, mistake is not having those two things set up from the very get go. Because you kind of you get excited, and you want to jump in and just buy a bunch of leads. Well, if you do that, you're just spending a ton of money, and they're kind of going nowhere, and they're not getting followed up on. So I spent, the first 2 or 3 months, I spent a lot of money and wasted a lot of money with not having those things already set up in place.
Interesting. Yeah.
Somebody on the chat asked if we manually assign each lead. So if you look at agency MVP, like I said, they have a round robin. So when a lead comes in, it goes to each producer separately. That way you don't have to go in there and assign to each producer.
And because that's also a huge question too, because it looks like Stephanie uses the lead manager, and I work with a ton of Allstate agents. A lot of people are very back and forth on whether or not they want a Shark Tank or round robin, which I think is a big thing. As far as leads going to who is available versus, spreading them out evenly across the office and the producers. What's your recommendation there? Because I've heard a lot of different standpoints on, both sides.
Yeah, when we were new, it was just me and another guy. It didn't really matter. It was just one other producer. But I only got to like 3 or 4 producers in that volume. I was constantly also watching, the lead volume that was coming in to EverQuote as well. So I'm constantly was watching. You can see the pipeline when you have MVP software and what the pipeline looks like. So if say Larry's pipeline was full for the, and he's good for a week, then I would just assign them all to Ben. So again, you really have to be engaged and watch and see who's doing what and what the pipeline looks like. Because if you don't and you keep it that way and say, then you won't know if somebody's having a hard time closing. So if the producers has a huge pipeline and hasn't closed anything for a long time, there might be a reason. That becomes like a sales coach thing. Like, why are they not closing? What are they saying on the phone? So we're constantly, listening to phone calls. So again, all that's can be managed from the software, and that allows you to coach as well, and not just kind of buy leads, buy the software, and then let the producers do it. You be engaged and coach the producers.
And on that note too, with the producers, because I see there's actually 2 different people who have asked questions on this topic. As far as how you compensate your producers, whether it's base salary, the commission on top of that, what's your overall compensation package look like for?
Yeah, we did a base of, and we're in North Texas, so we did a base of $2,500 a month, and then I did a 50% new business split, and then they had a minimum premium that they had to hit as well. And when I was with Farmers, they have the new business, the new business bonus. So like if we wrote 10,000 in new business, so we would get that as a bonus as well. So that definitely helped us out. But it was a base plus a 50% new business. And then my top 2 guys, I gave them some renewals as well. And then that way, they were able to like kind of build their own agency inside of mine. And that allowed me to have them stick around. They were with me for 4 years. So they stuck around a lot longer than they probably would have if they didn't have that renewal coming in as well. And
yeah,
I would bonus them on training the new producers coming on also. So we had one main guy, and definitely made sure to compensate him correctly, because he helped train and had the renewal base. So he had new business, base, renewal, and bonuses. So by the time I left, he was making over $100,000.
That's awesome. Now, do you? Because I have a couple of Allstate guys that I've seen do this more predominantly with like an office manager or someone who's kind of leading the charge and directing the troops a little bit. Have you ever given out a percentage of your bonus as a captive, like on the farmer's side? Did you ever, compensate someone and say, hey, look, if you get the team to hit X amount percentage and I hit bonus, then I'll give you a portion of that?
Yeah, our bonus was if we hit 150 policies, then when we were at 3 producers, so if each producer wrote 50 plus policies for the month, then they would get a bonus. So ours was tied more towards policies. And that might be another regret that I have too, is not more towards premium, but I tied it more towards policies. But if I had to do it over again, I probably would have done it towards premium.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I do have a question here too from Scott, and then this also kind of comes into what I would want to be talking about with you on as far as like the LCS stuff goes. Mm-hmm. Just to give everyone just an overall idea of what LCS consists of. The acronym itself stands for Lead Connection Services. It was actually a program that we implemented, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, right? At this point.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It basically, you would receive leads that are just regular data leads that, Bo buys roughly, 40 to 50 per day. But the purpose of LCS is we sell you the leads, and through AJP, the program that I work within, you get a heavily discounted rate. Bo is paying far, far below what the actual retail value of that lead is, just based off the volume he's buying. And what we do is that lead will go to you at the same time that it goes to our call center. So not only are you guys working that lead, but we're also working that lead on our side for the first 6 days of the life of that lead. So it's basically a telemarketing aspect that we've implemented that is an add-on to some of the programs that we've done. And, I'll kind of walk through a few things with you, Bo. When did you start using LCS? I think you were pretty much an early adopter, right?
Yeah, I think we were on some sort of program. I knew.
Yeah.
So yeah, when it first came out, we started using it immediately. Because I tried in-house telemarketing, and I just went through so many people, and it just never really worked out great for us. So whenever you guys came out with that program, we jumped on it, and we've always used it. So it's just been a big deal for us not having to, or for me, not having to hire somebody in-house for telemarketing, because everybody knows that that's not the funnest job. So
yeah, no, for sure. It also adds to the automation that you're speaking about, right? Too, where it's not only do you have agency MVP doing a lot of that legwork as far as emails and automated texting and calls going out, but you also have some piece of automation on the vendor side from us as the lead vendor, where we're also placing activity on these people and kind of warming them up for you guys to work, which has worked very, very well. I'd say 90% of my clients in AGP within LCS now. I think it's been a huge boost to our business and takes a lot of kind of that burnout material from the agency side off of your plate, which is really nice.
Yeah, when your producers are working on closing business and closing deals versus just constantly chasing, you're going to go longer. Their confidence grows, and that's a big thing for producers. Like when they come in, another thing with MVP is you have like a free game where we have prospects that haven't been worked in over 7 days or 14 days. Then your producer can come in there and they can close business pretty quickly. And that's a big deal. I've seen a lot of agents where they tell their producers to go out and get business, so they don't have a system in place, and they don't close anything for the first 2 or 3 weeks. And you can lose a lot of good producers by not having that in place. So having the automation and having LCS program in place, and not having to do a lot of chasing and instead doing a lot of closing, I think helps a lot when it comes to retaining producers.
Absolutely. The retention, especially on staff, is huge. Right
Yeah.
So to change the subject here, guys, we're getting some questions like people asking to clarify what exactly is LCS, Lead Connection Service, and how it works.
Yeah.
Just real quick to clarify for people who are asking.
Yeah. So LCS is basically a built-in live transfer aspect to buying an original data lead, like an email lead, where you receive the pieces of information via email and into your lead management system. But we are also, as EverQuote, calling those leads to live transfer the people that convert into your agency. So for Bo's situation, right? Bo buys 40 to 50 leads per day. Those leads all come into him in real time. He gets all those leads. And we're also calling all those 40 to 50 leads per day. So there's about a 10% roughly conversion rate on those leads. I mean, if you're buying 40 to 50 leads, Bo, you're obviously probably getting 4 to 5 calls there.
Yeah.
So it's a way to, not pay a whole lot of money. I mean, the program in AGP costs $500. For core, it's $250, but it's also a loophole for returns. So the program actually pays for itself. Like I think you spend roughly $5K, a little bit more, probably closer to like $7K per month on leads. And by spending that extra $500, it enables a return. So you're getting, anywhere from $700 to $1,400 back in returns credited to your account from just using LCS and obviously all the live transfers. So it kind of works out as like a net zero cost, but with the additive of the live transfer piece. So, and yes, Marianne, that is correct. We are only calling these leads if you guys subscribe to LCS. If you don't subscribe to LCS, the leads just come into you. They just basically, it is on you at that point to work them. Want to get to Jennifer's question. I feel bad. She put something in the Q&A and then in the chat. As far as when leads are coming into you guys, Bo, do you guys immediately quote every single person? Or do you only quote the people that you actually get a hold of?
In the beginning, when we weren't buying at that volume, we were. MVP also has what's called like a quote comparison. So they're integrated with Canopy Connect, which allows you to get some their current deck pages. But so the quote comparison, we can send out like a teaser quote. So in the beginning, I had a girl that was just quoting a lot of those leads that were coming in, and we were sending out teaser quote comparisons through the MVP software, and that got quite a bit of responses. Because the name of the game is just getting a response, you know, even just no or whatever it is, you just want to get some kind of response and interaction. So sending out the quote comparisons through MVP and the teaser quotes helped out quite a bit. Now, when we got, you know, going bigger and bigger, it kind of got harder. We would send out as many as we could. But yeah, we try to send out teaser quotes.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. The soft quoting, and then once you get them on the phone, run their, you know, their MVR and all that.
Yeah, a lot of people that, you know, maybe weren't interested, and once they get that teaser quote, then they're kind of open up and talk to you and interact a little bit more.
Absolutely. So, as far as LCS goes, would you say from you buying leads with us, EverQuote, right, and using LCS versus not having used LCS, did that show a big growth in premium and what you guys were doing from a production standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, it showed a huge growth because we weren't having to, again, like I said, the producers weren't having to chase a lot. So it took the telemarketing out of it for us. So that, and with, like I said, $500 a month, I mean, if you are an in-house telemarketer, you know, it's going to cost you a lot more on the training and just having to deal with another staff person. So
yeah, seriously,
it expedited things a lot for our producers. And I just got to the point where it was all about, you know, the ROI and, you know, how can I make my producers the most efficient they can that they can be. So taking, you know, with the lead manager software, the MVP and the LCS program, all those things helped my producers write more business, and you know, it helped us out tremendously.
That's awesome. And selfishly, you know, an EverQuote rep here, what would you say is the ratio of business that is generated from our leads versus, you know, all the other marketing that you're doing on average?
Yeah, we were really going, I would say it was like an 80-20 split on the leads. Yeah, because we were still working networking and social media and all that other stuff, but you really just can't, I mean, unless you're just a huge influencer or huge network of people. But if you want to scale, you really need to have a source that you can fill that data pipeline up. And again, if we didn't have agency MVP system, mining that pipeline and ranking those leads and ranking those prospects, which is a huge difference between other CRMs or lead management systems. They actually rank the leads and prospects. So when my producers log into that system, they know what we would call and why they're calling them. So there's 30 different data points that are in that software that rank those leads and prospects. So the ranking helped a ton as well. So my guys know whenever they log in, they know who to call that day and why they're calling. Either a plate falling off, the prior carrier took a rate increase, the zip code location. So there's all different factors that go into the algorithm, but that helped a lot as well. So
awesome. Yeah, no, I do think that, oh wait, hold on. We have one clarification question from Jeff. Would you say, was it 80% EverQuote leads, 20% other marketing, or vice versa?
80% EverQuote leads. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's what I thought. I was hoping that's what.
Yeah. You know, yeah. And again, we were able to write a good amount still networking and doing social media, but, I just really couldn't scale the way I wanted to really grow it to the size that I wanted without internet leads.
Yeah, no. And it's been a long journey, and you guys have been crushing it, even in that transition. I have a question here from Tucker. He said, you may have already covered this, but how many leads on average would you purchase per day, week, month? We'll honestly, we'll go with per day in order to reach the 50 to 60 raw new policy a month goal.
I mean, that all depends on, again, you need to have a lead management system in place. And And I believe that a producer needs to be getting 10 to 15 leads a day. So when I first started out with 3 a day, I heard a lot of agents say, well, we buy 3 a day, and we're just kind of, seeing how it goes. Well, it's kind of like mailers or anything else that you're going to do. If you really want to scale, you need to be able to spend the money and really buy the amount that's really going to show the ROI on us. So, I think 10 to 15 a day for a new producer is where you need to be at. And it needs to be in a league native system. It needs to be automated. And then whenever they're doing promotions, or if your carrier like Farmers is doing, 25% off or whatever it is, then bump that thing up, because you're going to steal your data up in the MVP. And like I said, you might not get them now, but with the ranking of MVP in the software, you will get them down the road if you're using it correctly. So I think you definitely have to do it in volume if you're really wanting to scale and have your producers riding around 50 or more a month.
And through MVP, on top of that, Marianne asked a question about asking how they're divided. The leads, that is there a weight on who's getting better leads? I know it does have a sort of algorithm behind it to call the hotter stuff first. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, the algorithm there's 30 different data points that they look at. So when that lead comes into the MVP software, it has the address, it has all the information in there. And then we also put some information in there as well when we quote them. And then that's how MVP ranks it. Like I said, it's like claims falling off, their prior carrier took a rate increase, where they live, the credit score, all those things taking into effect. So I didn't really, again, we just always did round robin, and then it's, like I said, if one producer got backed up and his pipeline was full, then we would just stick it to another guy. But mainly we just did round robin for them, and just worked it that way.
Perfect. And have you used Agency Zoom in the past?
I looked at Agency Zoom, and I think it's a really good system. I think it's me personally, I'm from a small town in Texas, so I like to keep things simple. And I like my producers just to work on new business. So I really wasn't looking for a CRM. I was really looking for like a lead management system. And I like the simplicity of MVP. And my guys open up their prospects. They know who to call. It has a call view, and they know why they're calling them. So I really think that if you're looking for leads and new business, I think MVP's a route. If you're looking for more of a CRM system, like on the and stuff, like server side, then I would look at Agency Zoom. But and again, the ranking is huge, because when you're buying that amount of bulk, you got to have your guys call the right people at the right time. And if they're not doing that, then you're just wasting so much money. So the ranking of the algorithm of the ranking is huge. And again, that's kind of the secret sauce behind the Agency MVP and what differentiates between that and other lead or CRMs.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I have Kenneth who asked a question here, which is actually pretty interesting, about, what your background was on the farmer side versus your independent side now. And I've heard a lot of funny responses to this question of guys that I have that were big Allstate agents and went independent. What's your favorite? What are the pros of being a captive versus the independent, and vice versa? I mean, do you like being an independent more, do you think?
Yeah, the pros with the captive is definitely the support. I mean, farmers, my district office was great. Me and my PM had a really good relationship. The support that you got from farmers on anything, commercial, whatever it was, from the district office or above, was huge for us. And then, on the independent side, you're definitely going at it kind of blind. I definitely thought it'd be a lot easier, to be honest with you. But just, getting carrier appointments and learning, easy links and the different raters. So all those things take time. But you're able to offer, 20 different carriers. So once we get, now that we finally got it dialed in a little bit, I expect our close ratio to go way up, because we're doing it the same way. We're telemarketing, buying leads, doing mailers, but now we have different carriers to go through. But I think that there's definitely both pros and cons to both. you definitely need to have some available resources when you're going on the independent side. So I definitely would say that, you need somebody in the bank before you take that plunge if you're thinking about it.
Yep.
But there's pros and cons to both. So
no, absolutely. I've seen a lot of people crash and burn doing it. And that's why I give you a lot of props for, as long as we've worked together, seeing you go into that independent space and, crush it. It's cool to see, people obviously go in and do that.
So I see a question from Jeffrey. MVP is integrated with Easy Links. So now that I'm an independent agent, I can kind of tell MVP what they need to do to make it easier on me and the independent agent lifestyle. So they are integrated with Easy Links.
And are they also integrated with Allstate Lead Manager?
I'm not for sure on that one. You have to ask Michael on that. I don't know.
And I can kind of speak to that as well too for Eric, who asked that. I don't believe, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, Michael, that MVP necessarily interacts with Allstate Lead Manager itself. However, I do know that we can send a lead on our side to both Agency MVP and Lead Manager, which I have plenty of people who do that. Allstate Lead Manager is pretty much a closed API. They keep their stuff pretty tight knit. So I don't think that, but I mean, Mike, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So you can have it if you buy an Everquote lead, it goes into both systems at the same time. And so that saves some of the double data entry. I think the other thing that we are just now rolling out is we've built a Chrome browser extension. So it's basically you can just go to the Chrome store and install it in a couple seconds, and then basically it copies and pastes the data into. We've got it working with, I think, we're beta testing it right now, but Farmers, Progressive, Allstate works with Easy Links if you don't have the direct integration already set up. So that cuts down the sort of the data entry quite a bit, and reduces the time to quote. So that was kind of a good workaround that we came up with, because some of the Farmers agents, we had a copy paste thing built into Agency MVP for Farmers Guidewire system. And then Farmers tried to turn it off for a little while and agents were freaking out. So we built this thing and then they turned it back on, but we've now adapted it to work with all different kinds of tools. And so yeah, just feel free to reach out to us if you have something that you'd like to know whether or not it works with.
Yeah, we use that conversation for most of the carriers that we ride through now. So definitely helpful on the data entry stuff.
And for the Allstate people out there too, to Michael's point, there are certain things that we can do where if we send a lead to your Lead Manager posting URL and you also are utilizing Agency MVP, Lead Manager can push into Advisor Pro or Alliance, right? And so what you can do is you can be doing a lot of your outreach through the MVP platform, as far as getting people on the phone and facilitating that new business and that outreach, right? And then when you get them on the phone, you shift everything over to the Quote and Advisor Pro, for example, which makes things a little bit easier because that data was already transferred. So I have a lot of people who work their process that way as well.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of Farmers agents who do that with Apex as well. So that I think some agents feel conflicted, like well, I have this system for free with my carrier. Why and we say, hey, that's not a problem, but really that's built a lot more for the CRM and after the sale. And if you want to scale like Bo has on the kind of on the front end of the new business side, you really need a lead management system. And in general, the carrier systems just they don't quite cut it for agents who are really looking to do volume.
Yeah, and the cost is very minimal not to have a lead management system in place. So
yeah, especially for what you get out of it. And I'm going to get to Mary's question here too, because she's asked it a few different times and I feel bad that we've skipped over it. So Mary, to go over everything as far as, a lead being sent to 3 overall agencies and then one agent using LCS versus the other 2 legs are what we call them, right? Not receiving LCS as part of their campaign. You are correct, right? Like Bo, for example, if Bo is sent a lead as one leg as the independent and then it goes to a State Farm and an Allstate, for example, the interesting part about this is State Farm is actually not allowed to use this product. So as for all of you farmers agents out there, for all of you Allstate agents out there, you know that pretty much the majority of the time, because State Farm is our more saturated carrier on the platform, you will be getting at least that one leg that is not on LCS. However, there are certain cases where, yes, Bo could have LCS, and then we could have an Allstate agent that is also using LCS and we're calling on their behalf, but the State Farm agent, for example, is not using LCS. Or if you're a farmer's agent and you're not enrolled in LCS, but Bo is, and then you have another State Farm agent, Bo is basically getting called and live transferred over that lead that you and that State Farm agent had. So that is correct. Chris Carlson asks what your full tech stack is.
I can send it over in the email to you guys, and I'll send it out. Like what lead is he talking about? Like when a lead comes in?
Yeah. So basically, lead comes in. Like what systems does it hit for you?
Yeah, it's they get a text immediately, and then an email like 5 minutes later. And then, like I said, the first 14 days, they're getting follow-up texts and emails as well.
And this is
through MVP.
All MVP.
Yeah, and MVP sets up the phone number and texting for you, so they handle all that on the back end for you. So you're getting you're not having to deal with any of that as well. So, but all that's going through MVP. Yes.
And in MVP too, we have another question as far as the quote comparison. The quote comparison stuff with agency MVP, it's funny, Todd actually came to Boston years and years ago and showed us this in person and how this works. But can you go over how that quote comparison tool goes for MVP?
Yeah, so you have all the information in there. You have your quote in there, and then you can either, if you get the current carrier's information, then you put that in there as well in the MVP. And there's just a little button, you put quote comparison, and it shows how much you're saving them in big green letters or numbers, and then how much additional coverage you're offering as well. Because like I said, we use Craig Liggins as well and sell off of coverage. So it's showing that, and then you can send that a side-by-side comparison via text and email. It's right there through the software. So instead of having it downloaded, write up an email, save the PDF, all that can be done just right there through the software, and it takes like 2 minutes. So that's why, those teaser quotes are huge. And then the integration with Canopy Connect, which gets the prior deck pages as well through MVP, then we can send a lot of quote comparisons. And that tool's been big for us for response rates.
You would say that's a pretty effective tool as far as the...
Yeah, you definitely, when you're sending those out consistently, then you're definitely going to see an uptick in response rate for sure on these leads.
That's perfect. That's what it's all about too. So I have my last question here for you, Bo. We have 2 minutes here, but would you mind sharing a little bit about, what you're planning on doing moving forward, what you're kind of currently doing now with us and what you're trying to ramp to?
Yeah, I'm going to take the same model I have for farmers and use it as an independent agent. I personally have gotten some more of the commercial side for me. I've gotten pretty heavy to the oil and gas on the premium side, so that's pretty exciting for myself. But when it's by producers and telemarketing and personal lines, we're going to take that same model from farmers and just put it on the independent side. Like I said, it has been in kind of a learning curve with the different carriers and the raters, but I definitely think my biggest excitement is the commercial side, but I'm going to do the same thing on the personal lines that I do with farmers.
A lot of money in the commercial.
Yeah, that'll offset some of the money that I'm losing on this transition.
Yeah, seriously, that's all right. I have a technical question from Angela about the Canopy Connect through MVP. She asked if the lead/customer still has to enter their info for you to get that information to be able to put that teaser quote together.
Yeah, they do, but even if they don't give you that information from Canopy Connect, and you don't get their current deck page, you can still send out like a teaser quote with just what you're quoting through farmers or whatever, or Allstate or whoever it is. So either way, if we do get their information, if we go, we're still going to send out that quote comparison.
Awesome. So we are at 3 p.m. I want to thank everyone. I mean, are there any remaining questions that any of you have for Bo? This is a smart dude. You guys have a lot to learn from this guy. So is there anything that you guys just want to get out here before we wrap everything up? See, let me go back to the Q&A. Marianne asked what the success rate for State Farm agents versus non-State Farm. And since LCS is not available as a lead management system, I guess that's probably more of a question for me. The State Farm versus non-State Farm, I mean, everyone has pretty generic success. I would say it all really depends on how you guys are working them. There's a lot of different variables that go into leads that I think are thrown back in a lot of agents' faces, which isn't really fair to do from the lead vendor side. But I think, to Bo's point, it's really important how you guys are working these. Some states might have better rates. Some states might not have good rates. You might have some quirky things like what's going on in California right now with like the 50% down payment on auto policies. So there's always going to be little nuanced things that pop up with the insurance world. I mean, a lot of you are kind of at the mercy of the captive that you're with in some cases, which I think Bo is a little bit more hedged for. But if you guys are working these leads and, you're in the certain areas that you're competitive with and you're buying the right traffic, right? As far as like whether you're doing auto or you're doing home or, you're focusing on life, whatever that may be. I think it's all really what you put into it at the end of the day. There's no really like magic key to it. I mean, but what would you say? Like,
I would definitely, there's a geo marketing report on MVP. So I definitely, like when you're buying these leads and that marketing report, definitely check that out as well. Because we started marketing and hitting zip codes up in the San Antonio, Austin area. Whenever DFW got hammered with hell, we kind of switched zip codes and then switched that up over there. So definitely check out that geo report as well. And you definitely want to know, where you're competitive at with whatever state you're in.
Absolutely. All right. Well, yeah. Thank you, Bo, for coming. This is awesome. Dennis, are we circulating a form here after as far as like Bo's process and that sort of thing? Are we sending something out?
So we're going to send the recording of today's presentation out. We don't have any like other collateral along like documenting his process, but you can go back through the recording.
Cool.
And review it. So we'll be sending that out within 24 hours. And we'll also send out how you can get in touch with Agency MVP and of course EverQuote if you're interested in learning more about EverQuote or MVP or our EverQuote's LCS program. So, and anyone, I just put the form in the chat, but that'll be in our email if you want to connect with one of our sales reps to learn more about EverQuote or LCS.
So, and I also put my my email and my cell phone number in the chat as well too for those.
And I'll put my cell phone number in there too, you guys.
And as Michael posted too in the chat, Agency MVP does have a 14-day free trial, and if you're an MVP user who signs up for EverQuote, there's a $500 lead credit you get. So we have a partnership where MVP users can get $500 in credit when they sign up for EverQuote. Like Matt was saying, people who use LMS systems always have better outcomes with our leads. So we want more people using MVP with our leads. They'll have better outcomes. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Really great stuff. A lot of great questions from the audience too. I really like the participation from everybody here. Thank you, Bo. Appreciate it as always. And Michael and Matt, you guys are great as always. So we'll be sending out the recording and hope to see everyone on our next webinar. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Everyone.